Coming to you live from Gillette Stadium, it's the Movie Change Up Podcast Disney Plus Weekly Review. Where each week, me and my co-host Tristan Mayer break down this week in Disney Plus. We've been off for the last few weeks. We had some stuff in our personal lives, and also we were just a little bit lazy and didn't really ever get around to it. But it is what it is. We're back. There wasn't much news to break down. It really would have just been a Moon Knight Episode 1 review. But we're here to break down the first two episodes. If you've watched our show before, you know exactly what we're about. If you haven't watched us before, basically what we're here to do is tell you what you should watch on Disney Plus and what you can kind of ignore. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this show are probably watching Moon Knight, but there's some other stuff on Disney Plus. We're all going to be breaking down any news stories, anything that may be interest to anyone that has Disney Plus. Tristan, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask you every week. What's been your thoughts on Disney Plus this last week or two? If you weren't, if we didn't have this show, would you still be a subscriber? Would you have dropped it? Because hey, Pierce HBO Max has taken over Disney Plus as the third largest streaming service. I imagine that's probably behind Netflix and Amazon Prime or maybe Hulu.
That is interesting, especially the news that Warner has finally had that merger gone down with Discovery now, so they're going to be a huge conglomerate. But yeah, I'm very happy with Disney Plus this week, and I think it was a week to me that made me happy I was subscribed because there's a couple of things here that, like, sure, I would have watched Moon Knight probably, but like if I wasn't subscribed to Disney Plus, I never would have watched Olivia Rodrigo's Sour special. I never would have watched uh, Better Nate Than Ever. I never would have watched Parallels, and all of those were things that I was, spoiler alert, somewhat positive on at least. So I think, yeah, this is a week where I thought, you know what, I made a good choice because I got some stuff that I would have never been on my radar at all before I was signed up for this. And especially because you're doing this show, I don't know if I would have necessarily checked out Parallels or something like that if we weren't doing this show. So yeah, a good week with some strong recommendations that we've fun to talk about.
All right, yeah, let's get into it. Our first topic of discussion is the first two episodes of Moon Knight, the latest series to come from the MCU. Stars Oscar Isaac as Stephen Grant or Mark Spector, depending on how you look at it. It's kind of a superhero based on vengeance, and he's kind of imbued with the spirit of the Egyptian moon god. And he's got multiple personality disorder, it seems like. It's been a really interesting show, fun show. It's definitely something I noticed from the trailers that I've definitely carried on from the show is this is the most cinematic looking show, I think, from MCU as far as Disney Plus goes. It's one of those things where every shot they've had, if it had been in a movie, I wouldn't have ever felt like, oh, this feels like a TV show. Maybe some of the look of the Egyptian god, I'm not sure if I hate it or love it because at some point it looks cheap, but other times I'm fully bought into it. But Tristan, what are your thoughts so far on Moon Knight?
Yeah, you mentioned that Oscar Isaac is the lead here, and I think that is definitely the shining bright spot here for me. I mean, I like the show overall. I'm having a great time with it, and I'm really impressed with it and having a good time. But I think Oscar Isaac at the front is what's really making me have a good time, and he's having this like Venom-esque performance where he's like, kind of reminds me of Tom Hardy in Venom, where he's had this kind of weird accent. You're not quite sure what he's doing, and there's also this crazy voice in his head telling him to kill people and do all these things that would be totally out of his comfort zone, and he's just kind of like a shy guy caught in the middle of all of this craziness. And I love in the first episode how it throws you into that mystery, where you're like, what's going on? Where are we? And you kind of have those big gaps in time where it will skip in the same way that it would for Steven. So you're in the head of this character the entire time. You never quite know anything that he doesn't know. So I really like that it's keeping you in that main character's perspective and keeping you in his lost kind of disorientation. So yeah, I liked it a lot. I'm having a great time with it so far.
Yeah, me too. It's been a really good show so far. It's probably definitely one of the better of the MCU shows. I think Loki's still my number one, but when this plays out, I could see this topping it. Um, I'm super unfamiliar with the character of Moon Knight. I really don't know anything about it. I don't know how much you know, if you have any theories, speculation, ideas of where things could go in the future.
I don't have much speculation. I know they've done a lot of references to comic characters here and there, but it's hard to guess because Ethan Hawke's character is like a one-off random comic villain from like a one-off issue. He's not really like a main Moon Knight antagonist or anything like that. They just picked like this random guy from one issue that in this his plot here is not even all that similar. Like he's a cult leader, and that's all they really
Yeah.
took from him. So it's hard to guess what's going on with that character, which I think is exciting, you know. And that's something that excites me about this in general is you didn't get a bunch of name drops or a bunch of cameos. Like this is an entirely standalone thing. You could easily watch this and have no prior knowledge of the MCU at all. You don't need to know anything about any of the other characters, and that's kind of what I was hoping for with these kind of shows. It feels like picking up a graphic novel and you just open it up and like you're able to jump in with the characters
Yeah.
immediately. And I think that's what's really been fun about this so far.
Yeah, one of my favorite things, I was like halfway through this episode, or halfway through the second episode, and I realized like, oh yeah, this is part of the MCU. This is connected, and I've been enjoying it standalone, like separate from the MCU. So I'm curious, number one, how it will like eventually tie and connect, and if he'll do anything. But I like the fact that I enjoy it, even though there really has been zero connections to anything MCU. Another question I had for you is. When in the second episode he went into his storage locker and there was a QR code to get into his storage locker, did you happen to scan that QR code?
I did not. Have you?
I have not, but however, some fans with a lot of time on their hands and great ideas did scan that QR code, and they found if you scan that QR code, you get a free digital copy of Werewolf by Night, the comic where Moon Knight debuted. So that's a fun little Easter egg.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that's pretty fun. I like that they hide those kind of things in there, and that this feels like one of those shows that they're hiding a lot of stuff and they're having a lot of questions. And it reminds me of WandaVision in a way where I was asking a lot of questions in WandaVision, but it felt like in a way we were asking questions there that the writers ultimately weren't intending us to be asking, and we were looking in the wrong places. And this feels like they know what we're supposed to be focused on. You know, they have the core mysteries of the show that they're asking the questions around, and I think that's going to help the show a lot. That it seems to have a bit of a focus, despite the fact that it feels so disorienting at times, and it feels like so different. It feels very much like a psychological kind of horror take on a Marvel character. So I'm having a good time with that. But yeah, I really can't wait to see where it goes. And the fact that it doesn't connect to any of the storylines, that we're not able to look at this and be like, well, he has to be here because he's going to be in this movie next, you know? And that's
Yeah.
kind of a thing that we had in the previous shows where it's like, okay, they're not going to like kill Bucky off in the show because they have to have him in the other movies. They're not going to kill off Wanda because, you know, she's going to be in this movie here. So
Yeah.
this feels like it could go any direction, and I love that about it.
Yeah, like I understand at some point this is going to tie into the larger MCU as a whole, but I could 100% see them like Oscar Isaac dies and the finale, and they're like, yeah, that's the end of Moon Knight. This whole thing was just to set up like Ethan Hawke's character or something for to be a bigger villain in WandaVision season 2 or something. Um, but yeah, I really don't have any further questions or thoughts on this. Oh, my
I
one.
want to point out. Oh, you have one more thing.
Go ahead. I'll let you go, and I'll
I
end with
want to
mine.
point out that the directors of the second episode are going to be the directors of the entire second season of Loki, I believe. So if you had a good time with the second episode here, they have a lot of good movies out there too. But yeah, they're going to be doing the second season of Loki. So if you like the kind of weird style, especially I thought that warehouse scene was really cool where the lights were flashing and you could tell at least a good amount of that was done erratically. You know, they actually had the lights flashing. They actually had Oscar Isaac running, and it felt like a grounded kind of horror set piece. And I like that a lot. That the show feels grounded. It feels a little bit smaller than you would get out of even something like WandaVision that had like a multiversal scale to it, even if it was small in character focus.
Yep. And my one final question is Paul Schrader has directed 2 movies. One starred Ethan Hawke, one starred Oscar Isaac. Do you think he's watched this show, and what do you think his thoughts are on it?
Paul Schrader, I would love to ask Paul Schrader what he thinks of Moon Knight. He'd be like, "What? What is that?
What is a
Moon
moon?
Knight?"
Yeah. All right, and that brings us to our next topic, and that is Man in the Arena, Tom Brady. I believe this was originally an ESPN production. It aired on ESPN about 3-4 months ago, and now it just finally is all dropped on Disney Plus. It basically chronicles the career of Tom Brady up until this point. It starts with kind of where the Patriots were when they drafted Tom Brady, and it goes all the way up until pretty much modern day. A lot of people speculated at the time that the end of the final episode was going to be him announcing his retirement. He ultimately didn't. He announced his retirement a few days later and then announced his unretirement about 2 months after that. So Tom Brady still active player in the NFL, which shows kind of how legendary his career has been, that they put out a kind of career encompassing documentary with a big production value while he's still playing. So maybe we'll get a next part in The Man in the Arena, but it's really well done. I've only watched the first episode. I think if you're a fan of football, you should definitely check this out, or even if you're just a casual fan, maybe looking to get into it more. I think it's good to watch because ultimately, because of the fact that it's chronicling Tom Brady, it kind of chronicles the last 20 years in the NFL and how much it's changed and how much it's grown in popular culture. Where kind of around the time when Tom Brady started and got drafted in 1999, NBA was king. You still had Michael Jordan, and the Bulls were at their peak, and now it's like not even close. The NFL is without a doubt the number one sports league in America. So I definitely think if you know it at all interests you, you should check it out.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because Tom Brady is such an icon of pop culture, even beyond football and sports. You know who Tom Brady is, so I think that'd be an interesting character to explore more of. You know, a person that has such a backstory I know nothing about. You know, I don't know anything about where he grew up, who he was, and or anything like that beyond his sports appearances and his public personality and his involvement in all kinds of different things. So I would be interested in at least checking out the first couple of episodes and getting a picture of Tom Brady and seeing if it's something I'd be more into.
Yeah.
How do you think it would work for me if I'm not really a football person necessarily, but I would like to get a picture of this kind of pop culture figure of Tom Brady.
I don't think you have to know too much because, like, I didn't know really anything about his early career because I was like 6 years old when he was drafted. But I think a lot of what they're covering in the first episode is, if you don't know the story, the starting quarterback of the Patriots when Tom Brady was there was like the hundred. They called him. It was Drew Bledsoe. They called him the $100 million man because he was the first NFL player to sign a contract for over $100 million, and he gets injured and he's out for 6 weeks. So Tom Brady steps in 2001. This is he Drew Bledsoe got injured the first Patriots NFL game after the 9/11 attacks. The NFL took a week off after the 9/11 attacks, and they came back, and Drew Bledsoe got injured in that first game. Got a chest injury, was out for 5 weeks. Tom Brady took over, and the Patriots were rolling with Tom Brady, and after Drew Bledsoe was cleared to play, doctor says he can play again. The coach was like, "Well, this kid that we drafted in the 6th round has been rolling. Like, we're playing well. We're playing the best football we've played, so we're just going to keep him in it." I think a lot of it is just like focusing on the emotion, and I think they tell you everything you need to know if you're unfamiliar. So I definitely think someone like you who doesn't know the full ins and outs and everything can still be entertained and get a lot from it.
Yeah, I definitely want to give it a shot because I know they have a lot of selection on here for different sports documentaries, and I feel like Tom Brady is one that would definitely stick out to me. He's at least an interesting person to get to know more about.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to ask or inquire about Man in the Arena, Tom Brady?
I've got no questions, Joe. Are you a Tom Brady fan? Did that influence your enjoyment here at all?
Uh, it's not so much a fandom because I was never like a big Patriots fan, but it's just definitely a respect thing. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about him, so you know.
And is he the best of all time?
I think anyone that denies the fact that he's the best is just in denial. So Tom Brady has more Super Bowl wins than any single NFL organization. So
Yeah, that's a pretty big win there. It's a good
yeah,
stat to go
yeah,
on.
yeah. He has more Super Bowl MVP trophies than most organizations have Super Bowl trophies in general. So I think it's safe to say he's the best. And I think that will bring us to our next topic, and that is Better Nate Than Ever. Something I did not watch, but Tristan watched. Trying to watch more content before we kind of stuck with like maybe the 3 or 4 main things, but we're trying to spread out. So, what are your thoughts on Better Nate Than Ever?
Look, I love a musical, Joe. So when I saw this on there, you see the poster. He's got his microphone. He's performing right in the middle of Times Square. I thought, oh, this is going to be a big elaborate musical. It's going to be this kind of elaborate coming of age story. He's going to have these big singing numbers about his emotions that he can't quite describe, and then you watch it and it's not actually a musical. Like there's a musical number, one of them, but it's a dream sequence from when he's sleeping on the bus heading to New York. It's actually a coming of age story about a young middle school student who's kind of a outcast in middle school, but he wants to be a Broadway star. He auditions for the school plays, doesn't quite make more than like the chorus line. He's saying, "Why don't they give me my chance, my to do the lead?" And he decides him and his best friend are gonna travel to New York to do open auditions for the Lilo and Stitch, the musical that was opening up on Broadway. So they run away from their parents and sneak out and go on a road trip out to New York. So you do have this fun coming of age story of these kids going on the run and discovering themselves. Lisa Kudrow plays like the cool aunt of the kid who lives in New York, and she has an interesting backstory where she also ran away to pursue Broadway, and she had her first big major callback the same day as her sister's wedding. So she ditched the wedding and went to the callback, and never really was able to patch things up with her family after that. And on top of that, never really made it on Broadway either. So she lost her all of her family, and then never really ended up making anything out of it. Anyway, so there's some tragedy there to her character that adds a lot to this, and it has a lot of heart. I think if you liked Coda, this is very much in the vein of Coda, where it's like the person who's not understood by the family wants to help themselves, help express themselves, and show what why it is they love the thing that their family can't understand at all. And I also think it's interesting to have LGBT representation because they're right now we are in kind of like the middle of this heated debate about like how do we talk to children about uh, sexuality and how early do we bring that into the conversation. And I think it's interesting to have a kid movie, uh, a classic Disney Channel coming of age kind of movie that has a LGBT main character, and it's not a huge plot point. It's just kind of part of the character, and uh, I think that's a really cool touch. So yeah, I liked Better Late Than Ever. It's not going to be a top list of the year or anything like that, but when you think of stuff like Cheaper by the Dozen and Sweet Home Alone, these movies that come out that, yeah, like you're just like, why am I watching this? What a waste of time. This was not a waste of time. I do wish it had more musical numbers and kind of big, showy performances that I was kind of looking for. But if you want just a heartfelt, good coming of age comedy, I think this is a good one for you.
All right, yeah, I may check it out if I got time, may not. Who knows? Everything you said up, nothing really scared me away, but nothing really made me be like, I need to watch this now. So, you know,
Yeah, and I think if you get scared away, because I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, musicals, I don't like musicals." This is not a musical. This is
mm,
like less of a musical than even like Walk the Line is. Like
mm,
as much of a musical as Coda. Like she
mm,
sings in Coda, but I
mm.
wouldn't call Coda a musical.
Yeah, my thing with musicals is I just every time everyone all knows the same songs and dance moves, it just takes me out of it. I'm like, y'all don't know this, y'all never learn this. But like if they're like movie like Walk the Line where they're just like singing songs, but it's like part of the plot and it's like a performance. Like saying Walk the Line is like saying is a musical. It's like saying Back to the Future is a musical because he sings a song at the end. Um, but yeah, I
I
mean,
do think it's fun that it kind of portrays this subculture, like of a theater kid and they make a bunch of references, and there's a lot of cameos of like Broadway actors. So I think if I was like a 13-year-old and I watched this, it would be like the greatest thing I've ever seen, and especially if I was like a budding theater kid. So I think if this does like check your boxes somehow, if you were a theater kid when you were young, if that is something you were into, I think you'll have a great time with this because a lot of references to even big, obviously like big musicals like West Side Story and things like that, but there's also cameos and stuff that makes it a lot of fun. So uh, I had a good time with it, and Joshua Bassett is also in it from High School Musical, the series. He plays like the kind of douchey older brother who's like the skateboarding sports guy. He's like, why does my dorky little kid brother want to be on Broadway? I don't understand. I just want to play sports and be cool. And he has an arc for himself. But it's interesting to try to make Joshua Bassett like a Disney star now.
yeah,
Maybe they're gonna push him in some other stuff.
yeah. Curious to see how that works out for him. And speaking of High School Musical, the series, and Joshua Bassett, our next topic is Olivia Rodrigo Driving Home to You. Something I wanted to watch but ultimately forgot about. Didn't. So I'm curious what your thoughts are, and I might actually check this out if you recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little poster right behind me. I've had that up there for a while. Olivia Rodrigo from the album that this is kind of based on, and this is, I believe, the third of like these series of musical biopic, or I mean, musical documentaries that Disney's done. They did the Taylor Swift one, Folklore, that was very a big hit and kind of dropped as a surprise, and it set the height pretty high. And then the Billie Eilish one came out, and that was much more of like a genuine concert, and it wasn't much of a documentary. It was kind of just like she was performing the songs, and if you're into the songs, you that's all you're gonna get from it. But this had a kind of a bit of both, and she didn't perform the entirety of the album, but she performs like the bigger songs from it and some of her more personal touches from it. So you get like the hits and then also a couple of the deeper cuts that she thinks are like highlights from the album. And you also get interrupted from that, like the stories of her talking about like what went into it and the thought behind it and the emotional state she was in when she wrote it. She doesn't name names of anyone, but you obviously know who she's talking about if you've any remotely way followed the drama of this. And you get to hear her story about driver's license. If you don't know, driver's license was her debut single, and just within a couple of days of it coming out, it was a Spotify #1 song of all time. It was like this humongously viral hit on TikTok and kind of single-handedly launched her career. And she, after the hit of that song, she went to her studio and was like, "Look, I want to make an album right now." And they said, "Oh, I don't know if you're ready for that yet. Maybe do another single." And she said, "Oh no, let's go right to the album." And that ended up being a pretty big hit for her. So it's interesting musical performances that are really kind of stylized and fun. You also get looks into the making of the song. So I think if you're into Olivia Rodrigo, you're definitely going to be get a lot out of this. But also, I think if you have nostalgia for like the Paramore era of like emo music, or you want to get back to like your angsty days of being in high school and where a boy breaking up with you is like the worst thing that's ever could possibly happen in your whole entire life, and like how dare he have a girlfriend now even, you know. So I feel like that brought me back a bit to the drama of teen years. But yeah, I had a great time with watching this. It didn't give me any huge insight or anything, but it was a
Yeah.
fun look into an album that I already liked a lot.
I wish I wish so. If you don't watch our main show, which we haven't done in a bit, but we're bringing back soon, of where we pitch movie reboots. A little over a year ago, I had pitched a movie reboot of a more of a um, Grease reboot, but set in the 90s. And I had done like 90s music, and I got thrashed for it. And people were like, oh, you should have picked a more different genre of music like the pop punk. I wish we were doing that today, because I would have pitched that same movie directed by Olivia Wilde, starring uh, Olivia Rodrigo as Sandy, but with all like pop punk music. Because especially now with the pop punk revival, you do Olivia Rodrigo as Sandy, find someone else to be Danny. Oh, I would have won with that pitch.
Yeah, that's definitely a winner, and you can tell Olivia Rodrigo is an all-star. Like between High School Musical and this album, and now this documentary, like they're really setting her up to be a rocket, you know. And I think she has a talent for it, and I'm really curious, like what the next step is in her career. You know, she obviously has the next season of the show coming out, but where does her
Mm.
career music-wise go after this? Does she end up getting in any movie roles? You know, like Joshua Bassett was in a kind of very small role here, but does she seems like more of a leading woman, you know? So do you see her show up in bigger roles in movies? I'm not quite sure, but I'm excited because I like her a lot.
I could see her show like starting off kind of taking the. I mean, Haley Steinfeld was in True Grit, but then she went away for a while and came back in Pitch Perfect and kind of regrew her career from there. I could see her having that kind of trajectory where maybe she's in like Sing 3 or something, or Trolls 3 as like just a voice, but also sings in the movie, and then kind of uses that to launch pad and acting like a actual like big budget movie star acting career.
Yeah, because you say like the Olivia Wilde connection there, like I think it's a really good fit for her. I think it would be really fun to see her do something like that, or
Yeah.
something like in the vein of like a yeah, like a Olivia. I think that yeah, I'm really excited to see where she goes next. She could be in the comedy kind of vein. I really would. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
where her career goes.
Yeah.
I wonder if she'll stick in the Disney wheelhouse forever, or if she'll go out into the wilderness a little bit and do some more interesting stuff.
Well, the thing that's caused the whole controversy is her music label is not Disney, and that's kind of caused problems, which is why she's not able to tour. And so I could see her being angry enough at Disney that she just goes and makes a movie for Warner Brothers or whoever that.
Yeah, she'd make a great like A24,
Yeah.
you know, coming of age drama. Give her a
Yeah.
Lady Bird, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I think we're on to our next topic. Again, another thing I didn't watch because I was
It's a lot
too
of me this week, I guess.
I was too busy watching Moon Knight and Man in the Arena, and that is Parallels. A thing I really don't know anything about. I think it's like a teen kind of sci-fi show. But other than that, I really don't know anything about it. So, Tristan, what is it? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, you summed it up pretty well. It is a teen sci-fi show, but the title Parallels gives you a hint. It's about parallel universes, and I think it. I watch it because it fits into the theme of everything going on, and I was like, you know what? I'm in the middle of my Marvel binge, trying to get myself to ready for the multiverse of madness. We got everything, everywhere, all at once coming out or is out now. I think at this point, and we seem to have a multiverse craze going on, and this is like the YA kind of Stranger Things take on that, I guess. It's much more young oriented than Stranger Things, but it has that kind of like young kids hanging out on their bikes, kind of coming of age vibe of Stranger Things, and then you mix it in with the sci-fi of the multiple universes. I think it is a pretty fun watch. And especially is a good counter programming with Moon Knight, because Moon Knight is definitely more adult oriented. It has like blood and violence, so I think this is a good kind of G-rated, PG-rated take on that. The kids are eighth grade graduation, so they're leaving middle school and going on to high school, and they're having kind of the conflict of, oh, are we really going to stay in touch, or are we going to kind of move on in our different directions and lose our friends that we've known for literally our whole entire lives? And then at that point, they're pulled into a different universe where they never existed. So you kind of get to see that played out. You know, they get to see the people that were important to them, just how important they really were, and how much their absence can play out changes in the town and around the people around them. So I thought it was a really good. I haven't finished the whole season yet. I watched the first couple of episodes, but it's one that I definitely would background watch myself and keep myself invested. It's a nice, fun watch as an adult, and I think if you have young kids who are into the Stranger Things type of stuff, and maybe are Marvel fans, but aren't you don't necessarily want to have them watch the midnight movie, Moon Knight. This seems like one that would be worth checking out if, in the same vein of like Just Beyond or Goosebumps or shows like that. It doesn't go any scarier, probably even less uh, genre than those are. So I recommend it for people who are looking for something to fill their time on Disney Plus, definitely. But not
Uh,
one that's going to be like, oh, best drama. But I thought it was a good one that I would not have watched if I wasn't signed up for this platform or doing this show. But I'm pleasantly surprised with.
all right, would you recommend someone like me watch it, or would you be like, hey, I'm probably not going to get much out of it?
You probably won't get much out of it unless I really do like the multiple universe kind of premise. I've always been a big fan of that in other shows and other movies. It's something that I seek out. So I think if you really do like that and you think it's fun to see, like, okay, you change these couple of things, you take a couple of people out. What does the town look like now? That's kind of what's fun for me is like seeing what the changes make in the people and the kind of mystery of them most figuring it out and getting back is not necessarily as compelling as just the premise of it. I think and some of the moments, you know, when you show up and the one character is different than the way you remember it, or a building is different than the way you remember it, or something has totally changed, and you kind of question like, oh, why did that happen? And then it does answer all of that. Like it seems to be offering answers to a lot of the questions and the mysteries. So it's going to be one that I do think I finish up.
All right, looking to hear forward to hearing your thoughts on all of it. I might check it out as well, so I can give a better review with you. But I think that kind of wraps up all of our drops for this week. We just got a little bit of news. First up, Dancing with the Stars is coming back, but it's not going to be on ABC. It's going to be a live broadcast on Disney Plus. Disney Plus's first live broadcast. I don't think you and I really care much for Dancing with the Stars. I watched it a little bit when it was first on, but I haven't watched it in a long time. So, what is kind of your thoughts on Disney Plus starting to do live broadcasts?
Yeah, I haven't watched much Dancing with the Stars. It's one of the shows where if someone I like is on the lineup, I'll watch a couple of episodes and then kind of lose track of it. But it is kind of fun when you see like Billy D. Williams was on there for a couple of episodes and he did like Star Wars themed performances. And I wondered now that it's on Disney Plus, are they going to do even more tie-ins? Like, are they going to do Disney Night and stuff like that, like American Idol used to do? And I think it'll be interesting because it might be a chance for me to actually watch more than I normally would because
Yeah.
it's on Disney Plus. It's right there to check it out. And I just think the yeah, like you said, the more interesting part of the story is not necessarily Dancing with the Stars, but the fact that Disney Plus has their first live show, and a couple of other platforms have experimented with that. I know Amazon Prime has done a couple of live things here and there, but
Yeah, they have.
Disney doing it.
Yeah, Amazon Prime does a lot of like Thursday night football live broadcasts. So
Yeah, and they done concerts and things like that. And I think it's really interesting to see Disney doing it, and I think it shows a strange future for network TV. Like, where is this a test? Like, if this goes really well, do we see them start moving other things over and
No,
other, especially on ABC, if you can get some of their like cheaper reality shows onto Disney Plus, is that like a money bank right there, you know? And all this conversation around the Oscars, so much drama around the Oscars and the broadcast of the Oscars. How long is it until we see the Oscars on Disney Plus? Maybe not only on Disney Plus, but simultaneously on Disney Plus and also on ABC. That
yeah.
could be really interesting.
Th-
I'm curious about the implications of this for sure. What do you think, Joe?
that's actually kind of what I wanted to go towards because I mean, Oscars really don't matter much for here. Like some of the stuff on here, like Summer of Soul, got an Oscar win, but it
Encanto.
didn't really Encanto. We probably should have talked about that, but I didn't really think about that. Anyway, it didn't really affect us, but I did kind of want to talk about the idea that the Oscars have been trying to reduce the time of how long the like broadcast takes for a while now, and I understand why. Like if you're only a casual moviegoer that really has no vested interest, you go on Sunday night 7:30, like, oh, the Oscars are on, and you see on the guide it goes from 8 to 11, and you're like, 3 hours, I don't want to watch that. And then including the fact that it went 45 minutes over, which doesn't make sense. They time out that thing so much. How do you not plan for it to go 45 minutes over? So my thought is, how long before Disney, ABC, or whoever ultimately gets the rights after ABC's contract expires will probably have their own streaming service? How long before you get like ABC doing a Disney Plus and ABC simulcast where maybe they time things out and plan things out, so they're like, and the winner for best makeup and hairstyling goes to Wendy Smith, and then she stands up, everyone cheers, and like as she walks to the podium, if you're watching on ABC, it does like the pan out with the voiceover being like, we're going to commercial. Like when we come back, see Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth present the award for best special effects. But if you're watching on the Disney Plus version, there's no commercials at all. She just walks up on stage, gives her like acceptance speech, and then right about the time her acceptance speech, she basically gets the entire commercial break for her acceptance speech. Commercial break ends, and just before the commercial break ends, they play their music to kind of push her off stage, and then boom, the next two presenters walk out as the commercial break ends. But if you're watching on Disney Plus, it's just this whole seamless thing. So a lot of, I don't want to say the like lesser awards because that feels like disrespectful to the people that win them, but the awards that your casual viewer is not going to care so much for, you just kind of time it out and put things in certain spots. So the acceptance speeches and some of the other things are just during commercial breaks, so you can save time that way.
I could also see them doing a direction where it's live on Disney Plus. You watch it there, and then prime time ABC they air an edited down version that's exactly 3 hours long. And if you want it live to the minute, you gotta watch it on Disney Plus. If you are a casual viewer, you probably don't care that much if you watch it by the second it's airing. So you're just gonna wait till 7 p.m. and watch it on ABC and get the exact 3 hour cut that shows only what they want you to see. Probably not any slapping. They'll make sure they cut out all the problem stuff and just show you the good stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. Disney Plus, 2 p.m. It starts at 2 p.m. live, and then it starts Sunday night. The Oscars they could do, it starts at like 8 o'clock or whatever, and it goes from 8 to 10:30.
And then you don't have to worry too much about what your runtime is on Disney Plus because you can just show it however long you want it to be on ABC. But even beyond the Oscars, I think this is really an interesting nail in the coffin for cable TV possibly. If this goes well for Disney Plus, if this ends up bombing, that's one thing. But if this goes well, I think it's another sign that maybe the days are numbered for cable TV.
Yeah, because like CBS has Paramount Plus and all that, so how long before? I mean, a lot of their shows, that's when California gets the show at 8 o'clock, it automatically is uploaded to Paramount Plus. How long before a lot of these shows are just direct to Paramount Plus and they don't even put them on CBS if Paramount Plus gets the subscribers that they want it to have?
Yeah, and with the Disney opening up the vaults for R-rated content, they have this whole huge backlog of stuff and now live content. Yeah, I think they're set up to really compete. And you mentioned that HBO overpassed them in the opening of the episode here, and I think that should teach Disney to really kind of push to get better content, so we're not here digging up stuff that we don't, uh, so we're actually able to kind of have a whole
Mm,
huge backlog of stuff to talk about and stuff that makes it worth watching, and that's the stuff where, you're always on Disney Plus saying, "What movie am I gonna watch next?" You're not going there just once a week to watch Moon Knight. You're there every night because something new is gonna
yeah,
drop, or at least they're gonna have something exciting from the Fox vault back there,
yeah.
and there's something live on some live ABC special. Who knows? I think I think all of that stuff is exciting because I like seeing a competitive landscape in the streaming market. It's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I'm also curious with the whole everything with Hulu and the TV mature. And now with them doing live broadcasts, I'm kind of just wondering when the hell they're just gonna merge Hulu and Disney Plus into one thing. I know they have that ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus live bundle, but I feel like if they were to merge all of them and say like January 1st, 2023, Hulu is going away, and if you have a Hulu subscription, it'll just like pass over into your Disney Plus subscription, but I just don't understand the point for both now with the TV, with the parental controls on Disney Plus.
I think Hulu is essentially going to just be their live TV platform. If you want to get your $40 a month or whatever it is to get Hulu Live, where you get all of the channels, essentially
Yeah,
a digital cable. That's what Hulu Live is. They'll
yeah,
have that, but I can see Disney Plus becoming. If you want all of our actual movies, all of our content, all that stuff, it's going to be on Disney Plus, and Hulu is
mm,
just exclusively the live TV platform.
yeah. Yeah, I can see that as Hulu Live is basically Disney's YouTube TV or Sling or whatever that is. That's definitely a possibility. My one final thought about this whole story is I imagine, and I want your thoughts, that the reason they chose Dancing with the Stars is I feel like their audience skews a little bit older. I think it's a lot of, especially women, and like they're in like the 40 and older range. Do you think this was kind of a move to try to get them to subscribe to Disney Plus so they can see like, hey, we have a lot of content that skews older. Like we have a lot of movies from your childhood that maybe people in yours and my age group doesn't care about. Like a lot of those 40 Disney movies from like the 50s and the 60s that we're just have zero interest in.
Yeah, because I'm sure they know they have at least our age demographic because they have Marvel, they have Star Wars, that stuff that a lot of people our age are invested in. But yeah, Dancing with the Stars is way out of that demographic. It's not anything they seem to be aiming for normally. But I think it's definitely an intended move, and it's also an interesting movie. We just talked about Hulu, and that age demographic is the primary age demographic of Hulu. Like Hulu's ages are much higher than everybody else in terms of who subscribes. So it could be an interesting poll of like, can we get some Hulu people to come over here and start paying for Disney Plus too? Maybe we can double the money. Why
Mm,
merge Hulu and Disney Plus if we can get people to pay for both?
yeah.
I think that could be their play right now, and maybe they just want to get people who aren't subscribed at all to the streaming platforms, like older people who aren't subscribed to anything and say, I don't want to deal with any of that stuff, the streaming on the internet, so I don't want to do that. But you take Dancing with the Stars away, and maybe they'll figure out how to set up Disney
Yeah.
Plus on their TV. They'll call their grandson and be like, "Tell me how to plug in the Disney Plus."
Yeah. Tell me what channel Disney Plus is on. All right, and I think that kind of wraps up that story. We got basically two real quick ones left. Both relate to Star Wars. The first one is a little change around with the Obi-Wan Kenobi release dates. It was originally set to release on May 25th, which was the 40th anniversary of A New Hope, but now it got pushed back to Friday the 27th. However, they are pulling everything else forward, and the second episode will also premiere on Friday the 27th as well. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. I'm thinking a lot of it is just to have less crossover with Miss Marvel, because I think part of it is Miss Marvel's not getting the hype that they wanted it to, so they figure maybe if it is sharing less time with Kenobi, maybe more people will be talking about and check out Miss Marvel.
Yeah, I definitely think they need to be careful that they don't cross too much other streams here. At first they want to have some counter programming, but they don't want it to be so much that people are just going to give up, or people are going to be like, well, there's 3, 4 different things going on at once. I'm just not going to watch any of it. I think that's definitely a threat if they go too big. So I think it's a good move to separate these. But I don't know why they don't have them on different days. Uh,
Yeah,
that seems like a
because
weird choice.
yeah, I don't know why they don't just because especially as more and more content comes out, they're gonna have more Marvel and Disney or Marvel and Star Wars stuff coming out at the same time. I don't know why they don't just be like Marvel stuff comes out on Wednesdays, Star Wars comes out on Fridays. Like that seems like it would make the most sense to me, but
Because that really is going to hurt the Twitter sphere. Like, of course, a lot of this stuff is based around like we want conversation. You know, we want people to be talking about it as it's happening, and if they're both dropping at the same time, you know, you're kind of competing for headlines. And I imagine, yeah, if Obi-Wan, if you have the episode where Hayden Christensen shows up, then also the episode where Brie Larson shows up at the same week or something, like, what is the
yeah,
conversation going to look like? I imagine that Hayden Christensen kind of overwhelms even the Brie Larson cameo, which would have in any other week been a huge conversation piece, you know.
yeah.
So they got to really look at what episodes or which week, and you even wonder if that was part of it too. They looked at the Ms. Marvel schedule, they looked at the Obi-Wan schedule, and they said, okay, we gotta squeeze it a little bit so that we don't crush our headlines. You know, I think it'll be interesting once these start to air, which episodes we get together and how which one kind of like wins over the conversation, I guess, because they seem to be competing against themselves at this point.
Yeah, and I could also see them being like, "Hey, we're fine with Miss Marvel being 4 and 5 and 4, 5, and 6 on trending on Twitter, with Kenobi being 1, 2, and 3, because we want 1 through 10 on Twitter being all Disney Plus or Disney related content, and just choke everything else out, so the entire world is just talking about us and not talking about anything else."
And that's also a play. You know, you have two of the biggest IPs in the whole world dropping at the same time. You're going to be the
Hmm.
only thing anybody talks about for the whole day.
Yeah.
You know.
It's also going to be interesting. People trying to avoid spoilers. People potentially like me that are like, "Oh, I watched the. I mean, I haven't been with Moon Knight, but I might start now." More because I didn't know anything about the character. I wasn't invested. I didn't really care about spoilers. But like Kenobi, I plan on doing what I had been doing with Book of Boba Fett in the last season of Mandalorian, and also Loki, where I just wake up early that day for work, watch it before I head out, and then go to work so I can be on Twitter or Reddit or whatever all day and not have to worry about spoilers. But at a time when Miss Marvel and Kenobi come out, especially the weeks they cross over, like I'm not getting up early enough to watch both shows. Like I'm gonna get early up enough to watch Kenobi, and if I get spoiled for Miss Marvel, I get spoiled for Miss Marvel. It is what it is.
And I also feel bad for like channels like Real Rejects and things like that that do live reactions. Like, how do you live react to two shows at the same time?
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna essentially have to pick the favorite, and it's hard to imagine. Ms. Marvel, I like Ms. Marvel as a character, but it's hard to imagine anybody being like, "Oh, there's a new episode of Obi-Wan airing and a new episode of Ms. Marvel. I'm gonna live react to Ms. Marvel." You know, I think Obi-Wan's gonna just be the more buzzy show. I have to imagine.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel like the world is more excited for Kenobi and not so much Miss Marvel, but kind of ends that topic. We have one final topic. It's just a small thing that Peter Ramsey, co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, he also directed Rise of the Guardians, is going to be one of the directors of the Ahsoka episodes. So, just wanted any quick thoughts you had about that.
It's interesting. I mean, I've seen a handful of his movies. I don't actually have many strong thoughts. I've seen like Monsters versus Aliens, I think is one that you said he did, and that was in my brain is one that I've seen. But yeah, a lot of like serviceable animated kids movies that are not bad, but nothing that stands out to me. It's an interesting choice. I wonder if they're going to be doing a lot of animated directors for this show, you know, with Dave Filoni and people like that coming over, and if they're going to be doing a lot of those kind of like first time feature directors. I don't know if this is like not first time feature, but like first time live action directors. You know, that'll be an interesting choice. Is that the only director we know of the Ahsoka show so far?
I mean, oh, so I assume there's no way Dave Filoni's not directing the pilot, but outside of that, no, I don't think we know anyone else.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the rest of the lineup is. It's interesting to see which shows they choose to give to a single visionary voice or whatever, you know, where they're like, oh, Deborah Chow, you direct every episode of this, and
Mm.
which ones they're like, okay, let's piecemeal these out to a couple different people.
Yeah, like I fully kind of expected Dave Filoni to be directing every episode of Ahsoka. So the fact that it came when I saw that news, I was less shocked. Like, oh, they got the guy from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and more shocked of like, oh, Dave Filoni's not directing every episode.
Yeah, you mentioned Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse, one of the best animated movies of all time. So if you can bring some of that uh, positive energy and like that definitely showed how to like
Mm.
be in touch with the character and a larger universe and not feel like you're just doing the same thing over again. That
Mm.
felt like nothing I've ever seen before in any
Mm.
Spider-Man movie. So if
Yeah.
you can bring some of that visual insanity and some of that kind of like surrealist stuff to it, I think it could be fun. If we get a lot of Ahsoka Force visions and things like that, I think he could be a director who brings out a lot of visual flair and kind of surrealism to the Force.
Yeah. Oh, also, I realized a couple weeks or a week ago when they dropped the news, I had figured out, in my opinion, why they switched up the Kenobi dates, and that's the theory I'm rolling with until someone says otherwise. Is Star Wars Celebration is during that time, is that weekend of the like 27th, 28th, and 29th. And so I think with moving it from the 25th to the 27th, they want that buzz of the live viewings of, because I'm sure they're going to have a theater full of people watching the first two episodes of Kenobi for the first time. They're probably going to be like that midnight. If you've bought tickets to Celebration, you can probably stand in line for a chance to watch the first two episodes of Kenobi with a group of people, and I'm sure they want those reactions, and I'm sure they'll have cameras in the room similar to when Paranormal Activity came out. They had those trailers of, look at these people live reacting to this scary movie in the theater, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if they have kind of a similar thing, but instead of like screams of fear, it's screams of hype as these people watch the first two episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, and you could see maybe episode 2 has like a big returning character or like an awesome huge Obi-Wan moment that would get the crowd popping. So they're like, we gotta get both of these episodes out there at the same time so that we can have the big crowd moment.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's episode 2 or episode 3, but there is a strong rumor that about a post-credit scene that contains something fans might be hyped to see. So
Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to see it. I've avoided almost every Star Wars
I'm
leak.
not
I
gonna
think
tell
that's
you.
a good thing.
I know you've tried to avoid leaks. I will just tell you, every leak I've read has made me more and more confident that people will love this show. Now, the ideas and everything, the story can be great, the execution can be terrible. So we'll see about that. But all of the story beats I've read have made me more and more excited. So
We're not that far away, Joe. We get 2 episodes at once.
nope, we're about a month and a half away. About a month and 15 days. So I'm very curious to see how it goes. Tristan, any final thoughts on Disney Plus this week before we head
No,
out?
I'm looking forward to next week. More Moon Knight, which will be fun, and I'm not sure what else we have dropping movie-wise next week on Disney Plus, but we'll be here talking about
hopefully.
it, giving you some ideas on what to watch, and letting you know if Moon Knight keeps keeping on, or if it does the typical Marvel TV show direction. It seems to be start off really well and then kind of like all of a sudden teeter off, and then you get to the end and you're like, wow, did they plan that one out at all? But I hope Moon Knight doesn't go that way, so we'll see next week if it keeps it up.
Yeah, I feel Loki and somewhat Falcon and Winter Soldier were the only two that ended with anything other than being horrible. So, without further ado, goodbye. Hey, thank you for watching the Movie Change Up podcast. We'd really appreciate if you liked, commented, subscribed, and shared us with anyone you think might be into what we're doing over here. Thank you. Have a nice day.